the plan that I see in my head is living in Dubai and riding a jet ski every day. Just financial. I don't know. I just have that thought of, I don't know why Dubai. It's just known to me as like that place where you can make things happen. It's just, I don't know. It's just something that comes to my head. But essentially the plan, it would be financial freedom. So building up a lot of investment properties.
Hello and welcome. You're listening to Dashlot Insider, the home for property investors seeking a life of freedom, choice and abundance. And on today's episode, we have a chat with a young investor. His name is Ben Pickard. He's 24 years old. We talk about how he went from failures in stocks and crypto and turned that into property investing success. We get into a little bit of life advice for anyone who might be feeling stuck and so much more. This is a fun episode full of actionable advice and really great insights on somebody else's journey as well. So I'm sure you're going to love it. And of course, if you do, make sure you share this with a friend, family member or loved one. Subscribe on whatever channel you're on. And without any further ado, let's get stuck right into it. And I'll see you on the inside. Welcome back to Dashlot Insider. Joining me on today's episode is Ben Pickard. Ben, how are you today?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks, Goose. How are you going?
I'm going great. Thank you very much. I'm really excited to talk to you today. Not only was I recommended to talk to you by one of our awesome team members, I'm really interested to dig into your story because you're quite a young investor. And I'm very interested to kind of dig into the psychology around that, what even made you want to get started, and we can kind of go from there. But before we get started, why don't you just give us a bit of background? Tell us a little bit about who you are, where do you live, what do you do for work, how old are you? That'll be a good starting point.
Yeah, so I'm 24 years old, living in the southeast suburbs of Melbourne in Vermont South. For work, I'm a software developer, so I finished my course not too long ago. I've been working in the field for about 2 years.
Nice. Who are you a software developer for? Where do you work?
A company called Net Wealth, financial tech company. Yeah.
Yeah, nice. They're awesome, actually. They are like, I'm a big, what's it like working there?
Yeah, really good. Most of the company is based in Melbourne. So yeah, it's quite busy all the time in the office and whatnot, but great culture, great people, and yeah, been happy there.
Nice. Love it. So how old did you say you were?
24.
24 years old. Okay. So 24 years old. Now, I know that you've bought an investment property because that's part of the reason why we're talking, but I'm very interested to know like what led up to that. Like at what stage did you start thinking about investing? Because when I was 24, the only thing I was interested in doing was like partying and traveling and all of that kind of stuff. So what kind of led you on this path? How did you arrive at property? But like, let's go back to the start. When did you even start getting interested in investing, full stop, in anything?
Yeah, so it was in 2020. My cousin and a couple of his mates had sort of found a good stock that they thought was pretty good, and my cousin's mate's dad thought it was pretty good. Not insider trading, not quite that level, but they'd heard some good things about it, and so started 2020. We decided to jump on it, and unfortunately, it was just before COVID sort of started, and it sort of went well for a week or two, and we thought, oh, this is going to be great, and then crashed down. So sort of dabbled a little bit more.
What was the company? Do you remember?
PointsBet.
PointsBet. Interesting.
Yeah. How
are they going now, though? Like, have you still held on to it?
I've held on to it. I'm not looking at it, so that's how it's going.
Yeah. Yeah. I chose about a year ago to just delete the share trading apps and just ignore it. Pretend like none of it exists.
Pretty much. I wouldn't be surprised if I had to reset my password to get back in because I don't know it.
Yeah. Nice. Okay, so you got into PointsBet. COVID hit. That was going good. Then it went not good. What made you keep going?
So just sort of that younger mindset of I've got a bit of money. Let's try and work things out and try and research things for myself and tried crypto as well and whatnot, but they all I sort of got into them all at the wrong times. Sort of started doing all right with, like, got into crypto and sort of up 10% in a month or so. And then next minute I'm down 50% because more stuff happened.
So just take a little step back, because in order for you to even start trying to invest in this, you mentioned you had a bit of money, which means that you were working and saving. What was even prompting that? Because there are a lot of people at a lot of different ages. This isn't just a young person thing. I know people in their 30s, 40s, and even 50s who choose to live in the moment, not to live for the future. And so I'm interested to know, like, what was prompting you to start to build up a bit of a nest egg? And then I'm also interested to know like how much you actually started investing with. We'll kind of dig into some of that stuff there.
Yeah, so at the moment, I'm sort of more of a invest now, play later. But at the time as well, I was sort of I worked quite hard, and I do work quite hard. And, I was doing full-time work. I was casual, but I was doing full-time hours and full-time study. And then I was playing sport on top of that. So I didn't have a huge amount of time on my hands. And when I did, I was sort of just pretty tired, and I'd sort of chill it at home. I live at home as well, even still. So I sort of just quickly built up, that nest egg. And I don't know, I'd sort of splurge here and there on a little thing, but like it was never really, too far into the savings or whatever. And it sort of just, allowed me to just build up quite well. And with investing, I sort of started off in the early 4 digits. So, upwards up to about 5,000 or so, and would pull out a little bit here and there if it was going too badly, and I'd sort of try and manage it and go somewhere else or put into something a little bit more stable like an EFT or whatever. But
so this is super interesting. And so it sounds like the start of your investing journey, which started in 2020, didn't really go that well. Like you tried a few things. And so how long did you keep trying in shares and crypto before you decided, okay, this isn't for me? How long did that last for?
It was very sporadic, sort of off and on here and there, but probably like a year and a half, I'd say.
That's super interesting. What was the goal? Like, was it just like, I don't know, I'll just try and make some money? Or did you have like...
More or less, sort of just try and find a stock that would get me Tats Lotto sort of returns. And I'd be set. No, I was sort of just... I knew I've got a lot of family who invest and stuff like that. Uncle's more of a conservative investor. My grandpa used to be a bit more of a blue chip sort of a thing. So I sort of knew investing was the way to go, but I was still a bit too novice with it, and probably even still a bit sporadic with, I'm down a little bit, I better pull out, or, not playing the long game. Just a bit done with decisions, really.
It's really hard though, isn't it? Particularly with shares and crypto, because you've got such easy access to the data, and like one of the things that people say is good about shares is that it's much easier liquidity than property. Like if you just decide one day that you want to sell all your shares, you can just go sell all your shares. But that's also a problem, right? Particularly when you can see the movements on almost a per minute basis or whatever. It's very hard to control your emotions in those moments. Like I'm a pretty long-term thinker, but I suck at shares because I'm just like, I'm watching them do this and I'm like, oh, I'm a rock star. Wait, oh my God, this is terrible. I'm gonna, and I like always make emotional decisions. It's really, really hard to do.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the days I remember pretty well with PointsBet, it has sort of recovered a fair bit, and I didn't have a huge amount in it still because I'd sort of diversified or whatever, but still had enough in there, and it went from $9 in one day and had a good announcement. And at one stage in the day, it was $18. And then by the end of the day, it had gone back to 12 or so. But it's just addicting watching that page and just clicking refresh and just being like, oh, sweet, got a bit more here. And
yeah, totally. So so let's timeline this a little bit. So you were working, you saved up, you had a little bit of cash, you didn't really have the time or the compunction to spend it on stuff. You decided to start investing in 2020. You basically unsuccessfully invested for about a year and a half. Then what happened?
Then a guy that I worked with, you might know him, as you said, Jason Da Silva. So he started working with you guys. I think that was around 21. He said, yeah, look, if you've got a fair bit of cash, I've been hired at this place. They're really good. But I said, you know what, stuff it. There's no point sitting on 60K, 70K in the bank, not doing anything. Let's get moving. And again, it still falls back on the, I was living at home, expenses weren't high, this and that. Yeah, so I decided to invest with you guys.
So what prompted you to do that? Because most people, that's a big shift, I guess, to go from like shares to like, okay, my mate said, I'll just go and invest in property. And like, that's a big shift. How much education did you do on property as an investment vehicle? Like how informed were you before you started that journey?
So yeah, it wasn't necessarily just Jace saying, yeah, look, let's do it. And I said, yeah, let's go. I hang out a lot with Jace, outside of work. In work, we'd have downtime and whatnot. And, I would do research and all that. And just the knowledge of property, everybody needs property. So, being in that long-term game was good. But yeah, doing research and stuff. But any questions I had, I was able to easily just say, hey, Jace, how does this work? How does that work? And he loves it. And he was able to just say, yep, this is what happens. This is the go, blah, blah, blah.
And so property that you bought has actually performed pretty well, hasn't it? Are you aware? Have you got the kind of like recent performance numbers on it?
Not on me, but yeah.
I do.
I'm sure you
know what they are?
I'd love to.
Okay, so let's recap. You bought this property in WA for $290,000, roughly about 22 months ago, roughly. The gross yield at the time that you bought it was like 6.8%, which is pretty bloody good in anyone's book.
Fantastic.
Now, because rents have gone up, the gross yield on it is 8.1%. And over the last 22-ish months, it's gone up by 31.38%. It's now worth $381,000, which has given you put about 86 grand into the deal, all in, including all of the costs and all of that kind of stuff, total amount of cash required for the purchase, which means that you've had 109.55% return on invested capital because it's made you, through growth and everything, $91,000. How does that make you feel as a 24-year-old to be able to just sit there and go, oh, okay, I bought this thing and I basically just did nothing and now it's given me a 109% return in 22 months. How does that make you feel?
Oh, it's awesome. Like you said, I do nothing for it. I don't need to monitor anything. I mean, obviously you've got tenants and stuff like that you got to manage and, sometimes you got repairs or whatever, but like the fact of the ease going through a buyer's agent with you guys and, you guys were able to handle so much for me. Just knowing that I can put my trust in you guys and things have just worked out so well is awesome, and not trying to just, spit you guys up. But, it's just the fact of, yeah, it's only going to go up, you'd hope, and nothing's, you do nothing and it's great. So I don't know.
Just do nothing and it's
just
great.
Do nothing.
So look, not to beat around the bush, but like our services are pretty expensive, particularly when you're just getting started. What made you decide that you were going to be better off to invest in working? Could be any companies, right? So, but like to invest with working with someone versus just going and doing it yourself. Like, how did you cross that chasm in your mind? What was the rationale?
Yeah, so there's word of mouth, and you speak to a lot of other people. My uncle is very solid on the fact of buy where you can see, so something in Victoria or whatnot. But I wasn't so convinced on that, just because of I didn't think anywhere that I would necessarily want to buy would have the same potential as somewhere else that, like Jason was advising, or anyone. Yeah, it's a lot more expensive, but again, it's that trust sort of a factor. I've read your books and you've got these formulas and whatnot and multiple data points and stuff like that. So I guess it really just came down to trust, and I'm not going to know nearly as much about picking the right property or seeing things because I'm so young as well. It was just, I guess trust.
That's interesting. You mentioned your family, like you've mentioned your dad and your granddad and your uncle and stuff, all kind of like share investors. Is there much of a property investing background in your family?
So I mentioned my uncle a bit because he's done pretty well. He has bought a few residential properties, and he's got a couple of, or maybe one or two. What's the next word? Commercial. Yes. He's got a couple of commercial properties. So he's been in there, and I've got my partner, her parents have got residential as well. So there was just also that idea of, look, it's a pretty solid way to go.
And so what does your family think about your property investing journey? Like, what do your parents think? What kind of feedback have you got?
So I'm a strong believer of the education system doesn't really teach you enough about investing and what to do with your money. They sort of teach you how to, what you've got to do in life. You've got to get an education, you've got to get a good job, you've got to do well in your career. So Dad has only really started doing stock investments recently in the last few years since I've started doing them and whatnot. But I think he's pretty happy with the property investment side and stuff like that, because he doesn't really know what to do about his property. You know, he bought one 20 years ago and hasn't really done much with it. You know, he's borrowed a little bit against it for renovating the house or this or that, but he doesn't really have much knowledge otherwise. And I'm trying to, you know, get him on that side of, you got to do something with it.
What does he think about you investing though? Like he's looking at you at 24 years old, you know, successfully investing. Like, is he do you guys talk about it much, or have you got any feedback from them on what they think about your personal situation?
Not massively. I think he thinks I've got it pretty easy compared to him back in the day. You know, he used to say that he'd be
classic boomer.
Oh yeah, 100%. He said, you know, when I had 2 exams a semester, he'd say, I used to have 16. And he'd always try
and he used to have to do them outside in the snow as well.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. After a 15K hike each way.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So we haven't really spoken about it, but I think he's pretty happy and pretty proud of it.
Yeah. Nice. That's pretty cool. And what about your friend group? Obviously, if your friend group includes Jason, you're probably going to be friends with a whole bunch of other property nerds. Have you got a close friend group that are all on that journey as well?
Yeah, so I've got Nick, who bought with you guys, Ashwin, who's bought with you guys and working with you now as well. I've got a mate who I think is looking to go with you guys as well. He bought an investment property over in Victoria with the grant a couple of years ago with the intention to live in it, but realised, after a year, I'm just going to rent it out and do that. So I've got a little bit of a little nest egg of friends, for sure.
Nice. And so what's the goal? Like, actually, before we get to the goal, I actually want to know what has this investment journey done for you in your life so far? Because as I understand it, you've got some notes here, and you used some of the equity to buy a car. Like, talk to me about that decision.
So I had an old car. It was 2006. It was breaking down a little bit under the weather, and a bit of cash came available from the house with the equity. And I thought, you know what? I haven't really done much for myself over the years, as I've said. So went out and bought myself a car, really love it, and it's going to, keep me going for a while, because otherwise I didn't have enough at the time to go, enough saved as well as with the equity, didn't have enough to go and to get another property or anything. And yeah, it sort of just went out and did it, saved me from having to, spend a bit of cash later down the track. And I think the property even pays for the tenants pay for the car, which is pretty handy.
That's a good way to think about it, the tenants pay for the car. But let me dig into that, because I want to try and understand the rationale behind that decision. So effectively, you took capital out of an appreciating asset, which is making you money, and you used that capital to buy an appreciating asset, which is going to go down in value significantly. Now, cars or material things generally depreciate not only in value, but also in not only in financial value, but also in like emotional value. So I'm sure when you first bought the car, you were like, this is sick. Like, do you still feel that way about it? Or is it just now just a car? And how did you rationalize that idea of taking, capital that's working for you to almost buy something that's working against you? Talk to me about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, it's a V8. It's a Holden V8. So,
well, that's okay then. No, totally, mate. You should have just sold the whole bloody house if you could buy a V8.
Tell me about
Holden.
No, so the reason I say that is, V8 Holdens aren't being produced in Australia anymore. So a part of the reasoning behind it that I figured it was fine was it should actually go up in value, and I think it has. But yeah, I still look at it the same way. Still love it. Still, every day. It's great. But that was sort of the reasoning behind it, because everybody needs transport. I wasn't going to go sit on a train every day because I play a lot of sports, so I pretty much drive every day. And I figured, what the heck? Essentially, I'm young. I'm still living at home. I can still save the cash. Might not necessarily be the best choice for my investing future, but it solved a lot of issues at the time. I figured it was going to be all right in the long term if I can look after it and all that sort of stuff. And that's where it got me to.
Okay, fair enough. So you consciously rationalized the idea that it was probably going to set back your investing journey a little bit, but you basically said, I'm young enough, bugger it.
As well as the fact of the future is electric cars, and I'm an adrenaline seeker. There's not much better than hearing the roar of a V8 behind you. So I didn't want an electric car in 10 years with my money.
That sounds like a well thought out financial decision.
Oh, absolutely. when you're looking at the checkbox, it says, "Are you an adrenaline seeker?" Yes, do it.
Yeah, okay, great. I'm not going to bloody wait until I wake up in 10 years' time and I can't even buy a bloody petrol car anymore.
That's it.
That's it. Classic. Classic. I think you're a closet bogan.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nice. Okay, well, talk to me about the goal then. What's the point? What's the point of it all? What are you shooting for? Or is it just like, I'll just start throwing some money around, I'll invest. Like, what's the plan? What are you trying to achieve?
Oh, the plan that I see in my head is living in Dubai and riding a jet ski every day. Just financial.
Why Dubai?
I don't know. I just have that thought of, I don't know why Dubai. It's just known to me as like that place where you can make things happen. It's just, I don't know. It's just something that comes to my head. But essentially the plan, it would be financial freedom. So building up a lot of investment properties, starting with the growth and then working towards cash flow sort of a position where I can step back out of work, not necessarily just 0 days a week, but because, if I was able to get out of the rat race pretty quick, I think I'd get pretty bored pretty early. So I'd love to be able to have enough that I could just go on holidays and not care about, $150 dinner every night for me and my family and stuff like that. Just having enough there that I just don't have to worry.
And so how long do you think that journey is going to take you? What's that kind of in your mind's eye?
I think if I was able to wind back by even 35, not necessarily having that freedom of not worrying about anything, but if I could start winding back work by 35, be able to spend more time with the family and whatnot, that would be ideal.
Yeah, nice. I like that. It's really interesting though, because like a lot of the things that you were kind of sort of pointing to, maybe $150 dinner every night, that's obviously got a specific financial consideration. But like even the idea of like, all right, I've got this vision that I want to be in Dubai and I want to ride jet skis every day. It's like, realistically, there's probably not a lot stopping you from doing that, much sooner, particularly if you're still prepared to keep working. Yeah, I think it's really interesting when a lot of people have these ideas of what they want out of their life and they think that I can only do it when I get to X specific outcome in the distance. And it's like, well, not necessarily. Like you could probably just go there and, maybe you could probably, because you're a software developer, you could probably negotiate to work remote and do all that kind of stuff. And, so there's probably heaps of ways you can start to test out the vision. In fact, I would encourage you to try and do that and just prototype it for like a month or two. Just like go there for a month or two, suss it out, because you might be, you might actually work out, it's not that great. Or maybe you love it, and in which case then you get to that success destination much, much sooner. Anyway, just a couple of thoughts. And so is that the kind of core intrinsic motivation, or what's the plan now? Like, are you going to continue to buy it?
Yeah, so at the moment, we're in the process of actually looking for another one. And I'm trying to get in the process of fixing myself in terms of motivation, because, I can get into a bit of a rut of, I'm working from home today. I'll set the alarm for 7 and then I wake up at 7 and say, no, let's go back to sleep till 7:30. No, 8. Whereas
I won't send this to anyone at Net Wealth.
Yeah. Thank you. But, getting in the motivation of actually being able to get off my ass and, work for myself, work on myself, and start, learning more about what I need to, in terms of maybe it's starting a business or something like that.
So what are you doing about that? Like what is actually your process to do that? It's good that you've identified that you need to work on yourself. Like what specific processes, practices, habits, or rituals are you putting in your life to take you from, we'll call it an ad hoc existence to a deliberate existence?
Just starting to read, essentially, because knowledge, I think, is the best way. I can try myself and try and fail, and you're not going to learn from failure or whatnot. But I think it's easier for me to start off learning from other people and what they say, and just get building up that knowledge, and then just going from there and figuring it out. I'm not really sure what the full timeline is or what the full steps are, but yeah, aiming to get there.
Yeah, so it's really interesting, right? Because all of this stuff, like all of like the personal development stuff, or even like the way that I personally see it is I see that property investing is a component in lifestyle design, right? So that's the specific function. So why would you bother investing in real estate? That's a really fucking great question, because if it's just to make money, it's probably not going to be a great motivator. So really what you actually want to work out is like, what function does real estate investing or investing of any type serve in my specific life? Now, in order to understand that, you also need to know what type of life you're trying to create, right? And so without actually rationalizing those two things together, you have no reason. Now, you could just do things because you're like, like eating vegetables is a good thing to do, even if you don't have a specific health goal. Probably eat your veggies, right? So to the same degree, you might be like, I don't really know what my life goals are, but probably it's a good idea for me to invest successfully and, set myself up. So you can kind of do some of these things because you're like, well, I know it's good, but it certainly works a lot better when you've got some deliberate function around like the things that you're trying to do and achieve. And what you're kind of talking about, it's interesting. I'm kind of happy that we're segueing into this area because I find it really interesting, because I speak to people of all ages. Most people have no idea what they want. And most people haven't even stopped to ask themselves the question about how to, stop to ask themselves the question, and also haven't put any practices in place to try and help them become the best version of themselves. And it's only when you actually start asking yourself, like, what specifically do I want? Because we build up these pictures of success, but they're usually pretty vacuous and meaningless. Like, I'll be successful when I own a private jet. It's like, well, I mean, come on. Like, really? I mean, that'd be nice, rock and roll, but like, right, is that going to be a measure of success? Or is it, I'm going to be successful when I have complete autonomy over my time? Or is I'm going to be successful if, all of these different things? And so asking yourself, who do you want to become, is actually just as important as any of the other stuff. And so really, really digging into that, like the two best questions that you can ask yourself is, am I happy? Really good question to ask. And what do I want? And really, like, what do you want? And then just ask yourself, why do you want all of those things? And so if you start to do that, it'll be a continuous process, but start to dig through that. And one of the best bits of advice that I'll give you as well is to develop a structure that is not contingent on your work, right? Because what you said a moment ago was like, all right, my alarm's set for 7, and then I'm like, oh yeah, but I don't need to start with. It's like, it should be related to work. The time you wake up should be related to some other specific habit or ritual that you've developed, which is for the betterment of you. That is actually going to give you the motivation, because it's like, well, whether there's work or not, I have to get up and do this thing, which might be meditation or journaling or gym or whatever. That's the commitment you're making to yourself. And the way that I've helped a bunch of people do it is to effectively map out a perfect week, right? So you sort of literally design your entire perfect week, time you wake up, time you go to bed, everything that happens in between every single day, and then just do that for like 30 days and then see how you feel. And then if you feel good, then you can just optimize it from there. That'll give you a lot more of the structure that you need, rather than just sort of like, sort of trying to wing it and work it out along the way. So
yeah, absolutely. That's the thing. Just trying to figure out that wake up as well. That's the biggest thing.
Yeah, it's easy. You just pick a time and set the alarm and get the fuck up.
I wish it was that easy.
Set 3 alarms. Nice. Okay, cool. So what advice would you give to somebody else who's potentially in a similar situation to you and is unsure? Should they invest in property? Should they not invest in property? They're in their mid-20s wondering what to do. What advice would you give to someone like that? Look,
the logical thing is invest, as I see it. Depending on how much you've got, depending on what you trust, what you believe in, would be the best way to go. But also at the same time, as you say, you got to figure out what you want. Do you really want to be working for the rest of your life? Do you want to wind down working at some stage later in your life? Do you want to go do that Europe trip? Do you think that'll benefit you figuring out who you are or something like that? It's really got to be down to what you trust in yourself and externally as well.
Yeah, love that. I might just piggyback off that actually, because I had an interesting conversation recently, and it's relevant to this one because I was talking to someone who, let's just say they were behaving in a way that they weren't comfortable with, which could also be indecision about like, I don't know what I should do, should I invest in whatever. And I just said to them, I was like, well, just play out 2 different scenarios in your mind. Do exactly what you're currently doing for another 20 years. What does your life look like? Right? Then pick a different path, i.e. whether it's to do the investing thing or whether it's to stop living in fear or whatever start going to the gym. Fast forward 20 years if you do that, and what does your life look like? Then just pick which one you prefer. And usually it's going to be the alternate path, which is not doing the same thing they're freaking doing today, which is a really good kind of mental model for people who are you're potentially feeling a little stuck or a little confused or, unsure, should I do it or not? Maybe they've been procrastinating. I'm going to invest in property. I'm going to do it. And they've been saying that for like a year or two and they just never get around to it. It's like, okay, cool. Fast forward 20 years. Just like, what if you keep doing that? If you keep doing that, where are you going to end up? Are you going to be happy with that? Is that who you want to be in 20 years' time? Is that what you want your life to look like? And usually, if people kind of really dig into it, it's going to be enough of a wake-up call for them as well. So, awesome. Cool, man. Well, I've really enjoyed this chat. Is there anything that you wanted to dig into or anything you wanted to share before we kind of wrap things up?
No, nothing comes to mind. I think we've covered off pretty well a lot of different bases. So, yeah.
Yeah, nice. Hey, actually, I've got another note here and I wanted to dig into it. And we should have kind of probably picked this up a little bit earlier. But Jason actually just mentioned to me yesterday, he said that you used a little hack to get your rent increased by like $40 a week. Do you want to talk to me about that process? Do you know what that was?
Oh, yeah, that's right. So I was with an existing property manager and time came around that the lease was up. The tenants wanted to stay in there. Property manager said, yeah, look, we think the rent is this, it can go up by $30 or $40. And I sort of thought, okay, that's not bad. I wonder if there's anything better we can do. And Jason said, yeah, look, we've been going through some other guys or whatever, because the property manager the way they got their rent was just through I think it was CoreLogic or whatever it is that they use. And that was just the suggested. But then went to another property manager and said, hey, look, this is my property. This is what the go is. What do you think we could get? And they were able to say, yeah, we'd actually be able to increase it by $70 or $80. So I went back to the property manager and said, look, can you do this? If not, I'm probably going to look elsewhere because, see how it goes. And then, so that was the little hack we were able to do.
Nice. I think that's been a big factor in how you've been able to bump up your yields so high because obviously even in a higher interest rate environment, you're definitely going to be cash flow positive on an 8.1% yield, which is pretty awesome. Awesome. Ben, I've enjoyed this chat. It's been useful and fun and productive. So thank you so much. Really appreciate your time. Look forward to hearing your success on the second property purchase.
That's it. Yeah. Thanks, Goose. It's been great. A lot of good advice and enjoyed it.
Nice one. Speak soon. Take care.
Thanks, mate. Bye.